everyone. My name is Eliana Lopez. I'm the editor-in-chief of the Spanish newspaper Noticia. I would like to welcome you all to our forum, Good Jobs and Good Schools, which has been organized by the Long Island Civic Engagement Table, Long Island Wings, and Noticia, and co-hosted by Senatorial, New York Communities for Change, Long Island Progressive Coalition, and Alliance for Quality Education. Thank you all for joining us. Buenas noches a todos. Mi nombre es Eliana López y soy la editora del periódico Noticia. Me gustaría darles la bienvenida al foro Buenos Trabajos, Buenas Escuelas, que ha sido organizado por la Mesa Cívica de Long Island Wings y Noticia. Tonight is a historic night because our communities of color in Nassau County have come together to speak about the issues most important to them with some of the candidates or with the candidates for state senate who would like to represent them. With this forum, we show what democracy really looks like. This event is an amazing community collaboration. So when I read out the list of partners, I want you to hear who's in the house from each organization. So let me hear from Alliance for Quality Education. Haitian American Family of Long Island. Haitian American Political Action Committee. La Fuente. Leadership Training Institute. Long Island Jobs with Justice. Long Island Progressive Coalition. Senatorial, New York. Interagency Council, New York Civil Liberties Union, New York Communities for Change, and then finally, New York Immigration Coalition. So now I'm pleased to introduce Steve McFarland of the Long Island Civic Engagement Table, one of the host organizations of this forum. So, Steve.
Good evening, everyone. How are we doing? Good. That's good. I tasked some people with being the hype section, so I hope that all those people are ready to hype. Everyone looks great. It's great to be here. I am standing also in the place of one of the co-sponsor organizations, Noticia, where Eliana's editor-in-chief, Silvana Diaz, who isn't able to be here tonight. So I'm going to take part of her role. So all of these different organizations that Eliana just read off came together to make this event. So Long Island Wins, Noticia, and the Long Island Civic Engagement Table have been proud to partner on forums like this focused on elections, candidate races, and also issues around Long Island for the last few years. Tonight is the night to combine those two things. So first we're going to hear stories from community members about the issues that are happening here in the district and what we're fighting for at the state legislature, why a race like the race between Mr. Haber and Senator Martins matters, and then we'll have a question and answer session with the candidates who are here. So tonight we have Mr. Haber. Senator Martins we invited, but he is not able to attend tonight, which is a good reminder that tonight is a nonpartisan event. Our core host organizations are 501c3s. None of the three of us have endorsed in this race, and we're here to talk about the issues, because the issues cut across party lines. And that's why we have these five amazing folks here to tell their stories.
Thank you, Steve. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for coming, and I'm so happy to see so many people here concerned about the issues that we're going to talk about tonight. Before Eliana gets us started, I'd like to explain the program tonight. Our two main topics tonight are access to education and a livable minimum wage. We will hear personal testimony from residents of the district about these issues and learn about 3 active campaigns for state legislation. The candidate will have 3 minutes to comment on the issues raised. After that, we will have questions from co-sponsoring organizations and from all of you in the audience. We are distributing index cards and pens. Please write your question on a card and pass it to an usher. We'll get to as many questions as we can, and we'll explain more about the format when we get there. Finally, We expect this debate to unfold in a respectful, focused manner. Please silence your cell phones, and throughout the forum, please refrain from making comments or applauding in response to the candidates' answers. Anyone who disrupts the forum will be asked to leave. So let's get started. The first topic will be the minimum wage. And our first speaker is Joe Cassell, member, he's the president of the Sherwood Civic Association. Joe?
Mary.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
My script is out of order. Okay, the first candidate is Mary, and you're going to speak about minimum wage.
Good afternoon. My name is Mary Cassell.
Shout. They're fixing this. You guys shout.
Oh, sorry about that. Again, I said good afternoon. My name is Mary Cassell. I am a Nassau resident who have raised my family here on Long Island. It has been a struggle with food prices, taxes continue to rise. To raise a family here as prices rise, my wages have never kept up with pace, which had made New York with the worst state in the country for unequality care. New York State has lagged behind such states as California, Washington, New Mexico, Maryland, who have already approved high wages for their workers. The faces of workers has come over. More females has gone from paying college books to feeding their children and paying rent. Working families on Long Island are sick and tired of struggling to get by. Nassau County has become places where raising a family on minimum wages has become a thing of the past. Working people like myself will pledge out of Long Island if Albany does not get their act together to raise the wages for all New Yorkers. We had enough. We won't put up with any elected officials. Sorry guys, excuse me. We would not put it on elected officials on notice that working people on Long Island deserve good jobs, good wages. We will not stand idle while representatives of government stand in the way of legislation that will raise wages for all New Yorkers.
So thank you, Mary. And our next speaker is Miguel Ángel Jiménez, a member of Se Hace Camino New York, or Make the Road New York.
Tengan muy buenas tardes, pueblo general. Mi nombre es Miguel Ángel y soy salvadoreño. Yo decidí a venir a este país que quiero pues, sacar adelante mi familia. Y ya llegando aquí pues me di cuenta de que todo es caro, ¿verdad? La renta está muy caro, el salario mínimo es de 8.25. Entonces, yo tengo mi familia también que come como yo, entonces no me alcanza el salario. Queremos de que nos ayuden en eso, a aumentar el salario. Nosotros venimos a este país, ¿verdad?, a luchar en nuestra vida y ganar nuestro salario con dignidad, ¿verdad? Miguel.
Hello everyone, good evening. My name is Miguel Angel. I'm here today to speak about my experience. I'm from El Salvador and I came here with a specific intention, but once I got here I learned that the situation was very different. It's very hard for me to support my family because of the salaries that I receive and the cost of living.
Sí, aquí pues habemos padres y madres que tenemos hijos en las escuelas y no nos alcanza el salario. Queremos de que nos aumenten el salario para poder sacar adelante a nuestros hijos, ¿verdad?
So we have a number of parents that are here, mothers and fathers that are worried and concerned because we have children in school and it's important for us to have a decent wage in order to support those children and their lives.
Sí, estamos hablando del salario, de que no nos alcanza. Si nosotros vamos a comprar un electrodoméstico, pues estamos pensando en gastar en eso y estamos pensando en pagar la renta. La renta pues no nos muy cara, ¿verdad? Entonces allí pues se traban las carretas, no hayamos que pagar o comprar, ¿verdad? Entonces queremos que nos aumente el salario.
So in terms of our salary, sometimes we have to decide between certain things. If we want to purchase something, a new appliance, sometimes we have to think about if that purchase is worth it, if we have to also worry about where our rent is going to come from. So these are the questions that we ponder and we think about when we want to consume and buy things. And so our wages are definitely an issue.
Good evening. Good evening, everybody. I've lived in Westbury for 34 years. I am here today because I am concerned about the education system. Over the past few years, I have seen quality become worse. Yet our tax keep increasing. Students need our involvement and legislator that cares. They need after-school programs and resources to succeed. Our school district lacks after-school programs and resources for parents to help students and is facing overcrowding issues. As a result of the public education offered in our district, my daughter is faced with a difficult decision to send my two grandchildren to private school in order to ensure a quality education. She's not the only one forced to make the choice. I am also the president of the Sherwood Civic Association of Westbury, and I've seen other parents in my community doing the same. Our minority low-income students are not receiving the best possible education they deserve. And many parents cannot afford to send their children to private school. We shouldn't have to send our children to private school when we pay our taxes. Helping today students not only helps them thrive, but also help the community by increasing our property value. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Raymond Lewis, and I've been working at the Nassau County District Attorney's Office sponsored soccer camp for the past 7 years. This soccer camp is located literally right across the street, and I think that me working in this community
Give it a shot.
Me working in this community for the past 7 years, since I was 14 years old, really gives me a good insight into what this area needs. It is at this camp that I have worked that I work with kindergartners and high school students from the Westbury community. These students are part of the public school system and have seen cuts after cuts throughout their academic career. With over $5.9 billion owed to public schools statewide, my campers have faced overcrowding and cuts to arts, music, and sports. They've even expressed the struggle of not having enough textbooks in the classroom or to bring home. I see how dedicated parents are in this community and how even those who can't vote desire better for their children. It is this reason that being a caring and conscious voter is necessary to help elect an education champion. The lack of resources is not due to lack of need or a lack of heart about education. The public schools in State District 7 are owed over $107 million. We need legislators who will invest in our students and provide them with a quality education. They can do this by focusing on teaching and not testing, ensuring students have advanced placement, foreign languages, arts, music, sports, careers, and technical education programs. Putting public school students first and initiating a statewide funding formula that helps and is dedicated to all students, no matter the zip code, should be our priority. If these steps are taken, it will give my campus a chance to have a summer without summer school, which more than half of my students have to attend, and a chance at a future with more opportunities and to better be helpful to the rest of our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Raven. Finally, we will hear about a different part of the fight for a quality education for all our youth. Mercy Suarez will speak about the experience of the Dreamers.
Hello, good evening, everyone. It's nice to see you all here to learn about our issues in our communities. And though I'm speaking last, the DREAM Act is not one of the least important issues we have in New York State. I am a dreamer. I arrived to the United States at the age of 7, unknowing what I was going to face in this country. As a young person, it was not fair to be seen as different just because I was an immigrant. I decided that I was not going to let myself down from all the negative comments that I heard once I arrived to this country. I decided that I was going to do better and show the world in the United States what an immigrant youth has to offer in this country. Therefore, I worked really hard to do good in school, right? And then when it came to high school, I was offered a program in Stony Brook during the summer, and unfortunately, because I was missing those 9 digits of my social security, I was not able to attend. And it was devastating because I worked so hard and I earned this. And again in 10th grade, with that hesitation, another teacher offered me this program. And at that point, I was heartbroken. I was like, I just can't take it. And then she said, why not? And then I explained to her the story. And through sharing my story, I managed to open up the eyes of my community and my teachers of what an immigrant student has to offer in the United States and here in the state of New York. So through those experiences, I'm not the only one who shares those experiences. Every dreamer in the state of New York, we are considered dreamers because we are young people who dream to help the United States, and we are here, and we are here to stay. And therefore, it makes no sense to deny us the education, where instead we could be helping our New York grow. Thank you. And I'm pretty sure those applauses were not just for me, but for every dreamer in the state of New York and the nation as a whole. And therefore, I'm here standing because the DREAM Act is an issue that cannot be ignored any longer. Because like I said, we are here to stay, and it makes no sense to let our passion and dedication to our communities go to waste without a proper education to help us grow together. Thank you.
Thank you, Mercy, and thank you, all of you, for sharing your stories. Please, let's give them a round of applause. Introduce Mr. Haber for his opening remarks and responses.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening.
3 minutes is not enough time, but I'll do the best I can, and hopefully in the 60-second questions we'll get a lot of the ground covered. But the reason why I'm running for New York State Senate is because of Mary Milyankin, I hope I pronounced that right, Joe, Raven, and Mercy. I don't know where Joe went. Around here, in the back. But I am running for New York State Senate, but I have a few short stories to share with you, and I love it here, and I want to help. And I knock on doors almost every day, and I hear the same stories over and over again. It's expensive. I'm going to address the minimum wage very briefly. I can't afford to live here. I can't put food on my table. $8 an hour might work in upstate New York, but in the most expensive part of the country, it just doesn't work. There's a study out that says the average amount of money a family of four needs to be above the poverty line on Long Island and Nassau County is $46,000 a year. For the rest of the country, it's $24,000 a year. If you do the math, even if both parents, if there are two parents in a home, are working for minimum wage, it's still below the poverty line. $10.10 an hour is just basic common sense to help people literally put food on their table. My opponent, unfortunately, is not here. He supports the current minimum wage at $8 an hour. But I also believe it should be indexed to communities and up to local communities to raise it higher if they so choose, because what you're doing is you're making an investment. There's so much we could talk about, but I'm going to give you a very brief story. I worked at McDonald's when I was a lot younger. I made $3.35 an hour. After a very hard, long shift, after making hamburger after hamburger, I got my paycheck and it was $20.01. And I looked and I had a discussion with my mother, Mom, can we afford this if this is what you made? She said, absolutely not. And I lived in a very modest home, and I worked very hard. But then I put that amount that I, in 1981, $3.35 an hour, into a computer program today to see what it would be today. And today it would be $12.70. So if you factored in with inflation and the gross domestic product and the growth of the economy, we're way below what it was back then, and back then it was still too little. So I plan on being the deciding vote in the state legislature with your help on raising the minimum wage. I'm excited about that, and that's the least I can do. So let's talk about public schools very briefly, and immigration. I'm on the Roslyn School Board. My wife taught in Mineola for many years. My mother taught in the city for many years. My brother teaches 4th grade in Newtown, Connecticut. Basic public education is in the Constitution of our state, that every child deserves a quality education. Westbury is suffering. We have overcrowding in the schools, lack of textbooks. It's just not fair and equal. We're right next door in Wheatley, in Old Westbury. They have unbelievable resources at their fingertips. The segregation is breathtaking. To make matters worse, we pay for the rest of New York State. We get 72 cents on the dollar in funding. New York State's upstate schools get much more money. Why are our kids any worse or worse off than upstate? They're equally as important. We lost over $7 billion in state funding for public education with something called the gap over the last 5 years. Very difficult to provide quality education with those resources. But the DREAM Act, which I'll address very briefly, my parents, my mother was a first-generation immigrant. Her grandparents came from Europe. Her first language was not English. I benefited from that. They didn't come here because they needed to. They came here because they had to. Investing in the DREAM Act is I'm a businessman. It's investing in education, investing in your community. $1 invested in people who go to college is a $4 return in tax rolls. So it's common sense, it's good business, not only your right to have the ability to do well. I'm sorry I went over a little bit of 3 minutes. I could talk a lot longer about that, but there's a lot of ground to cover, so thank you so much.
We now open up to questions from the public and the organizations. So I have here some questions from community organizations. But the first question will be asked by Betty Ann of Plan Parenthood of Nassau County. So Betty, if you...
Just stand?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. So as a young woman, it's extremely important for me to have full social, economic, and political control over my life. Avoiding unintended pregnancies is a large part of maintaining this control. In office, what would you do to ensure that I have access to essential reproductive health services like birth control and abortion?
Can I have 90 seconds for this one, please? There's something called the Women's Equality Agenda, which are 10 points from equal pay, no sexual harassment in the workplace, to codifying Roe versus Wade in the law. And the 10th point is extremely important, and the governor proposed that plan. I support that plan. And what's so important about it is a woman's decision to have an abortion is a personal decision between herself and her doctor. It's not something the government should be involved in. There's legislation across the country as the country becomes more conservative to stop your right to have that choice. This law, the Women's Equality Agenda, would just codify Roe versus Wade. It would just make sure that New York State has the same law as the rest of the country, because currently our healthcare laws with abortion are antiquated, and it's in the criminal code, not the health code. So I plan on being the deciding vote on that Women's Equality Agenda. Most of my district believes in a right to choose, over 2-1, and that's something I feel passionately and strong about and have made a central point of my campaign. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I don't know if anybody has like index cards that they wish to turn like to me or to Steve that's right there here. Please, I'm gonna read the question, and if you know that it's your question, like raise up so he knows who's asking the question.
Thank you.
This past year, 300 million out of the $340 million went to NYC, leaving the rest of the state applying for a competitive grant. Do you support the expansion of pre-K that is accessible to all districts? How would you do it?
Okay. I'm glad you asked that question. Again, I wish I had 90 seconds. New York City got $300 million in universal pre-K. I mean, I'm a big public education kid. My kids go to public school. I went to public school. Children are important. The more education you have, whether it's with the DREAM Act or with universal pre-K, gives you a better chance of getting ahead and having a good quality of life. I believe our children are equally as important. I believe in universal pre-K. The rest of New York State doesn't have that funding. We don't have the opportunity in Westbury or anywhere else in my district because of a backdoor deal made by the governor and some other people on Long Island that funding is so important for our community. I will fight tooth and nail to make sure if New York City has it, we have it. The Senate on Long Island has 9 Republican senators. Right? They don't have a voice for minimum wage, for universal pre-K, for public school funding, for the DREAM Act. It's completely dominated by their voice. And as your elected official, you can be sure when the next budget comes around that I'm going to make sure if New York City gets it, I'm an advocate for our community. We need to make sure our children get the same head start in life as the rest of the children do in New York City and the rest of the state. I can't do enough as far as public education goes. Good public schools means strong home values, means strong communities, and it starts earlier than 5 years old. Thank you.
What do you have in mind specifically for the Haitian community?
HAPAC.
Hello. No, it's a family.
Oh, it's a different.
Haitian American Family of Long Island.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, because HAPAC endorsed me. It's
Yes, I know.
political-
HAPAC is one of the organizations.
It's
a family.
my apologies.
HAPAC is a political arm. We are the social arm, social services.
Well, I was in Haiti after the earthquake doing some work with a charity called All Hands Volunteers helping build water filtration systems for the community there. So I'm very familiar with the Haitian community. I grew up in a Haitian community in Spring Valley, New York. I took French in high school because of that. Sometimes I wish I took Spanish because I'm more of a Spanish environment right now. But what's important, I think, for every community, not just the Haitian community, is there needs to be like a home or like a community center for each of the Salvadorians, the Haitians. Any large population in our community needs to have a cultural center where you can go and get a taste of home. You can go and have the resources you need, or somebody to help you with the resources you need. It's something called language access, which the county's supposed to give you.
We're very familiar.
So I'm just making sure because I'm very familiar with it also. You don't know what's available to you in your community, whether you speak Spanish or French or Creole, whatever it may be, and you need somebody to interpret, just like somebody here is interpreting right now for Spanish-speaking folks. We're a country of immigrants. I'm second generation. my mother's first generation. That's how this country was built. And how we take care of people who helped build this country is really shows us how we are as a community. So I plan to we have a large Haitian community in Elmont, and I plan on representing well, and I know the community well, and I think language access and trying to get a community center for the Haitian community itself is what I'd like to help see happen.
Thank you.
The next question says, do you support eliminating the gap elimination adjustment? Whose question?
Who asked that question? All right, so the gap eliminated adjustment was the governor's plan. There was a deficit of $10 billion 4 or 5 years ago. So what he did was he created something called the gap elimination adjustment, which is misleading because the gap really was taking the money from public schools and then alleviating the gap in the deficit of the government. So now there's a gap. Eliminated adjustment is what the $7 billion in state funding for public education went to the state to close their budget gap. So we're under a 2% tax gap, yet we have to provide quality public education and give health benefits and make sure our teachers get fairly paid. And Long Island suffers more than anybody else because we have 17% of the students here in Long Island. They get 12% of the funding. And when the gap eliminated adjustment came, and Long Island's owed $1 billion, by the way, from that, of the $7 billion in the state. We paid 18% of that out of the amount of money we got, and we still only had 12%. So we paid a disproportionate amount in taxes, and we got less services. So if we just got our fair share compared to the rest of it, so with 17% of the students, if we got 70% of the funding, your taxes would be about 35 to 40% lower, and we have all the money we need to provide a quality education. Westbury, which needs new public schools because they're falling apart and there's overcrowding, but have the financing needs to help build their schools. But before you say time, Westbury has about 30% funding from the state, whereas the similar schools in upstate New York have 75 to 80% funding. And because of that, 80% of schools have lost art programs or sports programs this year because of this gap elimination adjustment, and 95% of the high needs district have. So we're having less services, we're having less money, yet somehow everybody in politics says things are going great, and they're not. And it's my job to make sure we get the financial resources for public education, or I'm down to do my job. And because I sleep next to a teacher, I have no choice.
The next question is related to what you were just talking about.
Sure.
It says, how do you intend to resolve the overcrowding of classrooms of schools in your district?
All right, so there's, even out of my district, Hempstead Schools is something I care about very much. Roosevelt, Elmont, Westbury. Literally, overcrowding is an issue. You can't learn with 50 children in a classroom. And there's something else now where the state has a mandate where any grade that has 20 students who speak a different language as their native tongue have to have dual language education. That's coming out of the regular budget as opposed to the state giving you more money. These are things, if you need us to teach children in both languages, then we need the funding from the state. So my job is to make sure that we get more than we've been getting. We pay more and get less. The tax cap has cut services. Westbury is a tragedy because when you don't invest in public education, which are our children, who are going to one day take care of us, then you're creating a generation of children who are failing. My job is to be your advocate, to be the guy who screams the loudest. And I'm an old trader in the trading pit, so I have a very loud voice. And I'm not doing this to be beholden to anybody but my community. So my job is to be your advocate, to fight for that funding. And I plan on being in Albany and being on the education committee, making sure that we get our share. They're all asking for our fair share. We send, as an island, $3 billion more we get back in goods and services. For every dollar we send to Albany, we get back 72 cents. 80 cents, 90 cents in the dollar, that money should be going into public education, plain and simple.
It wrote in Spanish, but I'm not going to be able to read it because I don't understand your handwriting. So it says, what I want to ask the candidate is what he will do about security in or at schools, and also ask him about after-school programs he intends to implement.
All right, so security in public, where's the question? I'm sorry.
Okay.
So security in public schools, it's up to each school for themselves to provide security. And the second half was after-school programs. And that's money, each senator gets a certain allotment of money that they can give to their communities for whatever program it may be. I believe there should be a longer school day. I believe in something called community schools, which not only gives public education, but health care and after-school programs. An engaged child is one that's learning and not on the streets looking to cause trouble. Again, it all comes down to my ability to be your advocate. And because I'm most likely, when I win, going to be in a position where there'll be 32 Democrats and 31 Republicans, my vote as the only elected official on Long Island for the Democratic Party will give me a lot of leverage. And a lot of my leverage is going to be going toward public education. I mean, it's important for the police to make sure that your schools are safe. I'm hoping that they come and speak to the kids on a regular basis. I plan on being in Westbury a lot. But the only way that I can really advocate for you, and I'll tell you a very quick story. There's some membership from the TCC here tonight. They're a community that's based in the center part of Nassau County, from Roosevelt, Hempstead. I always leave one out, so don't take it personally. But Westbury, Newcastle, Uniondale, these communities have always been underserved. So what they did was they got together and they voted. And they voted in much larger numbers than they ever did before. So now, at election time, 1 year later, you've had congressmen come to their meetings, you've had the county executive come to their meetings, and now people are giving them the resources and the respect that they deserve because they have a voice. So the way I can help you is making sure that you and every single person you know votes. I'm not sure you hope you vote for me, but the issue is voting in large numbers, the squeaky wheel gets the grease. If you vote more than anybody else in the other communities, people will pay you mind and respect you to get what you need. Thank you.
What is your position towards the New York Dream Act?
Well,
I asked a question, but since you already spoke a little bit about how you feel about the bill, maybe you can also talk about what you think about driver's licenses.
You know, I just heard about that as an issue 3 to 4 months ago. I know that you want ID because if you're here and you're not registered, it makes life very, very difficult. You need to have, it's like a chicken or the egg. You need to have some kind of identification to get a job, and you can't get a job unless you have some kind of identification. So in concept, I think it's a great idea. Immigrants built this country. The quicker we get them into the mainstream, paying taxes, and working hard, the better off we'll all be. I don't know if there's any bills out there now. I know the DREAM Act was something that was discussed, and you have my full support of a vote for that. I've made that very, very clear. But I do think that, I know in the city they're doing identification. I think it's important. I just don't know what it looks like. I don't want to say 100% I'm going to do something if I don't know how it's going to be presented. But in theory, ID is good for people who need to work and need to be on the payrolls and need to support their family. So, thank you for bringing that up. And if you have any more information about it, please give it to me. I wish you knew everything. Right.
But no matter what happens in your race, Republicans will control most Long Island Senate seats. How would you mobilize public support to change their position on this issue?
Well, there are 9 senators right now in the state Senate. They're all Republicans. I'm hoping Adrian Esposito wins, so I'll have a partner to drive up to Albany with. So there'll be 2. But the majority leader of the state Senate, when we win the House, will be a Democrat from the suburbs in Westchester. We've had many discussions about this. Part of what they believe in is raising the minimum wage. Just because there's not many Democrats on Long Island doesn't mean that we need them all to get minimum wage raised. Mayor de Blasio supports the minimum wage. I also believe it should be indexed by your local community. So if Roslyn or Westbury or whatever community or the county believes it should be higher because it's much more expensive here, you have the right to make a living wage. I mean, there's minimum wage where you just barely put food on the table, or a living wage which is, let's lead a good quality of life. Now, I'm an advocate for Long Island. Personally, parts of upstate New York, if you rent an apartment for $300 a month and live comfortably, you can't get something here for less than $1,000. So I believe that the ability to index to your community will make it more livable and more approachable for your community. but you have my full support as far as raising the minimum wage. You just need one vote more than the majority, no matter where it comes from. And I'm sure I'm going to be disagreeing with my Republican peers on a lot of issues. Hopefully we'll agree on a lot also, but minimum wage is something that I am a proponent of. My opponent is against. He said in the Newsday interview that if we raise minimum wage, then people won't work because they'll lose benefits. And I just almost lost my breath. It's like people want to work. You get a meaning of life, and you get the strength of pride and job well done. And I tell my son all the time, I'd rather he be a street sweeper who took pride in his job than a heart surgeon who had disrespect for people. With work comes dignity, and I think well-paying, fair-paying, not 10 an hour. You're not like, whoopee, I'm rich. So let's be honest about it. You need to make sure that $3.35 an hour I was making in 1981 is at least reasonable today, so you have the same purchasing power.
So the final. So Lucrecia Munoz is saying that she wants more teachers and more transportation for the kids because many kids have to walk to go to their schools. So what would you do to improve the situation?
All right, well, those of you who don't know, I'm on the Roslyn School Board. I got involved in the Roslyn School Board in 2009 because 2 years before that, our superintendent stole $11.2 million, and there were garbage pails in the hallways collecting the rainwater, and it was in disarray. I'm a businessman. I understand budgets, and I've helped my school district with creative ways to raise revenue or find efficiencies to not only go from one of the worst run, highest tax districts in all of Nassau County. Over the last 6 years, we have the lowest tax increases of any district in Nassau County. We haven't lost a single teacher, and we've added services. The things I want to do countywide will help more resources for all the different schools. Busing. Many schools have to send children by law, by bus, to a private school if you want to go. So Westbury might send somebody, Roslyn might send somebody, East Williston might send somebody. If we combine the routes, we'd have plenty of money, millions of dollars more for public education. When you purchase books, instead of purchasing for one class, if you purchase 1,000 books at a time, you get a discount, there's volume discounts. I go through the checks in our school district and I see there's ways to save huge amounts of money. I probably saved or generated with my board about $10 million since I've been on the board in Roslyn. That's real money. And the way you get more resources is by a penny saved is the penny earned, and advocating for more money for the state, both of which I plan on helping. And I want to be the guy who leads these collaborative efforts to find savings among each of the districts. I mean, my passion is public education, and it's community, it's job creation. These are the things that I bring to the table, and I can only do it with your support. As your vessel, as I am a public servant, I am representing 315,000 people. The issues we discussed today are the social issues that I speak at every door, in every community, in every forum I go to. Good minimum wage, the DREAM Act, good public schools. I mean, you shouldn't have to ask these things. It should be understood, but it's not. The fact that we're having this discussion gives me energy every day, and I work 14 hours now all through election days. Bus train stations in the morning, to knocking doors and events at night, because if I could help and make my community a better place, it would be the most rewarding job I ever had. So, thank you very much. And I surely hope with 20,000 more Democrats in my district, all you got to do is come out and vote. That's it. Forget about the crazy mail you get, forget about the TV ads. What you see is what you get. I was a commodity trader in a pit for 22 years, so all my contracts were oral. I didn't sign things when I did business. I said, I'll do this, and it was done. And if I lied once, nobody would do business with you. What I'm telling you is, I'm here to serve you. I know how to lower taxes. I did it through the Roslyn School Board. We have the lowest tax levy increase of any school district in all of Nassau County, any full district since I've been on the board. My opponent, who was unfortunately not here, when he became the mayor of Mineola, he raised taxes almost 14%, and then he gave himself a 60% raise. So he took more money from the community, and then he took more money for himself. So instead of being a public servant, someone who serves the people, his idea is that the people should serve him. And make no mistake about it, I wish he was here, but he's a multi-millionaire who lives in Old Westbury, who sends his kids to private school, which he can afford, that's his choice. who doesn't quite get the fact that public education is the foundation of a strong community. Livable, meaningful employment is the foundation of a strong community. Making sure that the folks who are here, the dreamers, have an opportunity so they can stay here, okay? Because my daughter is going to college. She's in college right now. Thank God I could afford to send her to college. When she graduates, where's the affordable housing? We didn't get to touch on that topic. Where are the jobs for her that will actually pay her a decent wage? Where is she going to go for entertainment? I mean, there's nothing for the next generation. I'll give you three sobering statistics. 4 really. New York is ranked last in the country in places to do business. Over the last 5 years, the average income of a family of 4 is down 5% while wages are going up. And twice as many of our residents in that same time frame are on food stamps. People are working harder for less, and they have to get assistance. And the fact is, the average age in our community is 4 years older than the rest of New York State, because people can't afford to live here, and they can't stay here. Now, I'm staying here. I lived here for 21 years. I want to grow very old here. I want my kids to grow old here. And unless we start electing people who think differently, who make different decisions, we're not going to get different results. So I'm humbly asking you for your support. This is a nonpartisan event. Take the facts, learn about them, tell your friends. The only way I can help you is if you help yourselves. You got to vote in record numbers, and then every year going forward, I promise you, every politician, including presidents of the United States, will show up at your doorstep. Thank you very much.